Hi, everybody. Hello, my name is Letiredd, content creator over on Twitch, mainly stream and do content for Star Citizen. And today we're doing another react on Inside Star Citizen Mission Statement 324. I typically don't watch these before I do the react just to kind of, make it a bit more genuine. But from what I've been told, this is very heavy on mission design and what we're going to actually be playing more often soon. So I'm actually really excited about that because that's one thing that I found to be kind of lacking in the game since I started was a clear progression path through missions or different career types. Right now it's a lot of you can do this or you can do that, but things don't tie into each other enough and they don't really make you progress throughout the universe. The only thing we've all truly been progressing towards is making AUEC and buying ships to be able to do those different game loops. So I was really excited when in the Star Citizen Live they had the game director and his name is eluding me right now. I want to say it's Rich something. When he said it's how did he put this? It's his goal now to tie everything together to give us a cohesive experience that we can move forward with a career in the game. So the fact that they're talking about tying all that stuff together, that they're talking about, having more of a progression path for things to actually be connected together and make sense, I'm all for that. So I'm hoping we get a lot more of that today. So let's find out.
The upcoming Alpha 324 has a variety of life in the verse changing aspects, including the personal persistent hangars, freight elevators, and the next step forward in physicalized inventory. But with these changes come a new era in cargo specific mission content. Different than the commodity runs you might be used to, we spoke in depth about this in our recent Making Missions 2 episode of Star Citizen Live, which you should check out if you haven't already. Your Nick did great. And on this week's ISC, they're joined by Elliot and yet another Nick to show you these new cargo missions and reintroduce us to the long-mentioned Blockade Runner global event.
Okay, so that's super interesting. So really, we're just getting more of an elaboration on the ISC from 3 weeks ago, and that ISC was really interesting. And if you haven't gone to see the Space Tomato video where he talks about cargo missions launch, I highly recommend it. It's a really good one. They cover a lot of stuff in there. But essentially, right now, what we're getting is these missions that are designed to be interconnected with the different places around Stanton, at least at first. And there, it'll encompass Pyro once we get that soon, TM, who knows. And from there, it's going to be clear how you're going to progress through that career path because this is going to be cargo hauling, right? And from what I understand, it's going to be at first you're going to be doing smaller delivery missions for not enough reward. I already think because I think the number that they've put forward is 5K, and that feels too low to me already. Because you're not making any profit off of the cargo, you are purely there just to go pick it up and take it somewhere. And that's fine. I'm very excited for that stuff. And I know a lot of haulers and a lot of industrial players in this game are going to be very excited about that too. I don't think we should expect anything super exciting off the bat because from what was explained to us last time, it's going to be small missions between outposts at first, and then from there it'll be from a space station to maybe an outpost, and then from there it'll be from a planet to a station or one station to another station, and then eventually the last kind of part of your career will be doing very massive heavy hauling with with big loads from Pyro to Stanton, Stanton to Terra, Terra to Magnus, to Odin, to Nyx, to all these different systems that'll then be in the game. And at the height of your career, from what we've understood and from what I remember, and if I'm wrong, someone please correct me, either here or in the YouTube comments, that you'll just be doing the heavy hauling between systems, and that'll probably be the most profitable cargo. It'll be the most valuable cargo. It might be sensitive cargo. We'll see. I'm curious to see kind of where that all goes. But if you haven't seen that chart that they were showing, it may look very abstract and what do these lines on this paper with these different things written really mean? But if you understand how they want to tie everything kind of together, it's actually really cool. But all right, let's keep going.
Civilians are advised to avoid engaging in space travel.
Blockade Runner is an event that focuses on cargo hauling and space combat.
The inhabitants of a station ask for aid. The bad guys have blockaded one of these stations, and the citizens there need help to get certain supplies from outside to go back in.
The idea.
Well, already right off the bat, this is the perfect kind of event for the org we just created, which is a smuggling and freelancing org. So the org already has something to look forward to. And we are recruiting, by the way.
The idea with it is that you would have someone who flies a cargo ship and loads up full of cargo, and then have a bunch of escort ships that help fight them. However, the way they now have to get the cargo means they have to actually go and extract it from pirates who have taken it from the station.
We wanted to make a cargo-based event because a lot of our current events are really heavy on combat.
So that's a good point, Classical. I didn't realize that. This was an old event that they've brought back. So in the old event, was it based around cargo, or was it just about clearing the enemies around the station and more combat focused? Both. Okay, that's interesting. I didn't realize that.
And cargo's been kind of underutilized on the global event.
How long has it been since they took it out of the game? Because it's been at least 2 years. I mean, I don't remember. It hasn't been in the game since I've been around.
Event scene, and we thought it would be fun to work that into our usual design.
The response we saw from Xenothreat, when we first put Xenothreat out, we really liked when we saw players working together in kind of like a Dunkirk type moment where one person had pulled up, just opened the ramp, a couple of people had cleared the wreck already, and then they're all just throwing cargo into the back of someone's ship. They don't know this person. They've not talked to them, but everyone understands their role in this space they've created. And there's people who are flying above, sort of also protecting against the waves of Ninetales that were coming to the wreck. And it was just this beautiful mix of people who just all kind of knew exactly what role they fit into and asked no questions and just got the job done. We wanted to recreate that feeling in its own event.
Okay, so they took an aspect of Xenothreat that I think some of us really appreciated, and I can understand that others aren't interested in it. If you're PvP oriented, this is probably not going to be something very interesting for you. But then again, what I do like about most Star Citizen events, the one I'm going to take out is going to be obviously Siege, but there is always a combat component and a moving component. I really liked the Overdrive Initiative missions. I thought that was a great idea. I think we need more of that. Maybe not a new set of event missions every week, but every month or two, have an event like that lasts for a month is actually a really, really good idea and give us something to work towards in game. I was really happy to see that I had this cool set of armor from completing everything. That was dope. I mean, I like the concept. It sounds maybe a little bit simple, but again, good event doesn't necessarily have to be incredibly complex. Look at Jumptown. That's a very simple thing, and it goes really well. And what's funny is with them running Jumptown again recently and reducing the payout, I mean, everybody complained about the payouts reduction. That's it. It's the same reason why I don't do Ghost Hollow that often, is because you're really not making that much money to spend a lot of time fighting other people. If you're super PvP oriented and that's your bread and butter, that's what you enjoy the most, I completely understand it. I'm not super PvP oriented, so for me, things like Siege make more sense. I really like Xeno. I think Xeno needs more work, clearly, and the different phases have to transition a bit smoother. Maybe there needs to be something in between. I don't know. But it's a good step forward compared to the first time I played not Siege, sorry, Xenothreat, which was a mess. And people would yell at each other on the server. If you actually came in and went to go do Xeno, you would break everything, and so no one could play anymore. So people would be yelling at others on servers. It was a mess. So Blockade Runner, I hope, is just not it. It actually, honestly, as I talk about it and I think about it, it almost kind of feels like a Xeno 2.0.
So the flow of Blockade Runner is when you start the mission, you will receive marker points of potential sites where a pirate could be that has stolen cargo from the station that's requesting its return.
A hostile enemy force has attacked one of the LEOs throughout Stanton, and they've stolen a great deal of Zeta Prolanide from it. This Zeta Prolanide's been shipped out, it's being carried away, and the remainder of the enemy force has stayed behind.
It's cool to see the new containers for liquids and gas. That's kind of cool.
surrounding the LEO in a blockade. It's up to players of the verse to chase down these enemy ships that contain the stolen material, defeat them in combat, reclaim the material.
Either via the use of distortion weapons to make sure you get every piece of cargo that's on board the ship, or via killing it and maybe getting less, but you run less of the risk of dying yourself.
Once they do recover the stolen material,
That's actually kind of cool, and it kind of makes me think of how Classical deals with Vaughn missions now. Having the option of boarding them is awesome. Now, this is going to bring up another question, though. If we're going to be able to board them and we can just disable them, maybe kill the pilot and the crew on board, and take control of the ship, Legionnaire when? So we can actually do boarding.
material from the ships scattered throughout space, they'll have to make their way past the blockade and return it to the LEO.
There will be ships flying around that you have to actually disable while trying to land, or else you could lose all of your cargo.
Either way, their goal is to land safely at the LEO with the stolen material on. And once they have that, they get to use our fancy new cargo elevator mechanic to return the stolen cargo to the station.
The reward for blockade is based off of participation. There will be, similar to Xenothreat, there'll be a bar that fills up with contribution, and every time that bar kind of ticks over, you'll get a payment, and then you'll get a big chunk at the end when all of the SCU amount of cargo has been retrieved back to the station. So to get all of the cargo, I'd recommend using distortion weapons and boarding the ship. This way you can ensure that you get everything out of the cargo hold. Whereas if you do it the other way, you go from this 100% sort of loot to maybe 30%. There's going to be a big difference to encourage a different type of gameplay that players aren't really used to playing in our game.
I think a lot of the game loops in our game are a bit drawn out, and I like to think that you can get into the action pretty quick with this, and it's a relatively tight game loop, all things considering. I hope people will be able to jump in and out of it as they see fit and have a good time.
But isn't that the goal for every event you guys do, is for us to have a good time? This is interesting. Now, what Classical mentioned earlier, I think, is going to be a huge thing, is players deciding whose side are you playing with, right? If you have too many players on one side, that could definitely kill the balance. So I hope they figure out a way to kind of balance that out and not make it either an impossible fight on either side. Just use a herald. That's always good for boarding. I've never boarded with a herald, so I don't know. The problem with distos is the ship keeps drifting after they are turned off, which makes sense. You disable a ship if it's going forward in space, it should keep momentum. Now, I think to counter that, you would need to use an SRV, or we need to have tractor beams available on bigger ships that can actually do something. I think they want to test the distos in this event. I hope they do, because I know a lot of people were complaining about them in the last patch. I know a lot of people weren't really happy with them. People have kind of gone away from using them altogether. So, but distos are still strong with a mixed laser. Oh, really? Okay, I haven't seen that many. That's a whole fucking lot of I hope. Yeah, there's a lot of I hope in this game.
In addition to Blockade Runner, we're also adding a bunch of hauling missions that also utilize the freight elevator and instance hangars we're going to get.
With the introduction of freight elevators, we can now make missions that we were never able to make before.
Up until now, we haven't really had any missions which allow you to use your cargo grid. You won't have to go to various different parts of a station or find a ground station to get your land vehicle. You'll be able to get everything you need for your trip organized in one place.
Now, I can just go to my hangar and there's an ASOP terminal in there and I can watch my ship go down.
Okay, I want to bring this up because I think about stupid stuff sometimes, or things that seem unimportant. And yeah, my brain's full of that crap. But anyways, what I want to say is, so you can only load one SCU at a time on a mole, right? On a mule, right? Am I correct on that statement? I believe I am correct. So I don't want to do 6 to 696 trips depending on the size cargo ship I have. I don't think that would be enjoyable, and I don't want to get everything in a 1 SCU box either. And I think if I did that in a mule to fill up a C2, I would go insane and probably Alt F4 halfway through that process, or just self-destruct the ship and be like, screw this. And I'm sure there's some people who feel the same way. I'm sure there are others who would probably enjoy that, but I just don't see how anyone can want to do that over and over and over and over and over again. It just seems impossible to me. There are spots on the side of the mule, I think 3 or 4 on your side, but those are for 1/8 SCU boxes. They're not for full SCU boxes. Is last I saw of what you could put on a mule. Those are 1/8. Those are an 1/8 SCU box. The small guys that you get out of consignment missions and stuff like that. Those are not a full SCU. So
and come up and I can have all my boxes out. The ability it gives me to build the missions that I love is insane.
So for me as an economy designer, freight elevators means that I can reward players for new game loops and different types of activity that they haven't been able to fully play before, such as loading.
Just want to say they really need to be careful of the words they use, because rewarding game loops, what does that mean? Are you talking about like enjoyable, or are you talking about like financial rewarding game? Because right now you guys are not paying us out very well at all, and it's a little frustrating.
And unloading your cargo, figuring out logistics, and actually allowing players to monetize that effort and get a suitable reward for it. So the more time and effort that it takes to use the freight elevators and do the hauling missions effectively, the more opportunities I have as an economy designer to find the appropriate rewards for players for that game loop. And I don't want to see any Reddit threads on the rewards for these missions, because at the time of filming, we're still weeks away.
That means the numbers you see in this episode aren't the real numbers. Don't go to Reddit. Give this guy a break.
Everybody's going to Reddit anyways. But no, Tula, the point is, why would you, instead of having one box of an SCU, split it into 8 different boxes that you then still have to load onto the side of the mule, to then still put a 1 SCU box in the front, then take it out? And I don't think they've talked about it, and I've never seen anyone be able to order a 1/8 SCU box at a cargo place anywhere. Besides the consignment mission, or a delivery mission, those are the only 2 times you're going to get it. So you'd still have to load it in. What's up, Tonic? Well, he's an MKI, so I assume financial reward. I assume the MPVT is their target for lots of this stuff. You can buy 1/8 SCU boxes in the cargo centers, and you can use those as personal storage on your ship, which I've started to do more and more because, well, the ship storage has just gotten ridiculously small. And that was actually something that was really cool of them to do, and was really necessary. Now, the way you put it on your ship is still kind of janky, but once freight elevators are in, that'll all make a lot more sense. Exactly, but not if cargo just empty. Is there a target for loss? Well, see, Tonic, I hear you there, but the MPUV doesn't have a quantum drive, right? So if you're taking it, I mean, it's a long flight around the moon or around a planet sometimes to get to the next outpost, or even just think about the time it would take to fly. I think Ollie did it, or one of the bigger Star Citizen streamers did it, and he timed it from leaving the city, getting to the spaceport. I think it took him an hour and a half. That's insanity. So for me, the typical starting cargo haulers are going to be Drake Cutters, Titan Avengers. What else? Aurora LX. What's the Aurora that can take 6 SCU? I forget. Cuddy Black. I mean, those ships are going to be probably your first cargo running ships. Oh, Hull A. Aurora CR. There you go.
By the time the thing comes out.
You might be thinking,
So yeah, that's an 1/8 SCU box from a delivery mission.
well, we've been moving boxes for a few years now. Those delivery missions already exist. What makes cargo hauling missions so special? Well, in cargo hauling missions, we're actually allowing you to move real commodity containers with real value through the verse. You're not stuck with 1 SCU boxes. If you're asked to move 400 SCU, those will actually be intelligently packed by the system into different container sizes, which means you'll be able to load them up on your...
Sorry, I have to stop, because intelligently packed by the system. It's a loaded one right there, because we all know it's going to depend on server performance. So yeah, I hope that they are taking their time with 324 to fix whatever is being a big hurdle for them, so that we can actually see how it's meant to be played, and not create this resentment by a whole faction of players because when it came out it was broken, and so immediately people just kind of write that off and they don't go back to doing it, or they don't go back to doing it until somebody else or something major happens and changes in that loop to make them go back. Actually, recently I've been hearing more and more people have stopped doing delivery missions altogether because they're so bugged, and that used to be the bread and butter to tell new players to go do so that they could learn the game. So that's disappointing. I hope all that gets solved.
Your cargo grids for your cargo ships the way you've always wanted to organize them.
These missions will handle high volume of cargo. These missions are built for people who are going to own a caterpillar, people who are going to own a whole sea. These are mimicking a logistical framework that's going to be needed in, you know, a system, a universe this big.
That's a lie. They sped up this footage. Caterpillar is nowhere near that quick, all right? It is the slowest freaking thing in game besides a reclaimer.
Transport the goods to and from different locations.
Let me give you some examples. You find a mission where a few different outposts on the surface of Hurston have mined some iron, and you've got to bring it up to Lorville, where then it can be transported further from there. So you go to each of these outposts, you land at that location, and there, in the warehouse...
That thing, those things, freight. So that's what it's going to look like. I haven't seen any of this before. So this, or you can see my mouth, this and these and these, this is how you're going to get your cargo when you're at outposts. I already kind of hate it. Now, let me rephrase that. I think they look really cool. I'm really happy to see what they actually meant. But, and I know we've talked about this a lot with different streamers, with different people in the community, it's gonna suck going to pick up anything at an outpost now. You need to have security. So what I don't understand is if you're doing missions like this, you can so easily get destroyed and somebody can take your cargo. Now, what I did here to counterbalance this is the prices for illegally sold goods are going to go down. So it won't be as profitable because there would be more risk for the seller or the fence, whatever you want to call them, the person buying it from you and selling it again, is going to, they're not going to be able to sell it for as much because it's obviously known that this is stolen cargo. Especially that now we're going to have all the branded shipping containers. So that's going to be, it's going to be pretty big change. But okay, that being said, I didn't mean to say upset with this. This is not that. This looks really cool visually, and like, oh yeah, this would be awesome. It would be great if it was a single player game, but this is a massive multiplayer game that they're trying to create. So I see this as being a problem. Are they, and I know they're planning on removing almost all armistice zones, so what's that going to mean? Let's see.
Go to each of these outposts, you land at that location, and there, in the warehouse of that outpost, those containers will be waiting for you where you can call.
You mean me, Caffeine, right? Personally, delivery missions were 50-50 for me. Either you are able to drop off the box, would fall through the floor, or be refused at the drop off. Yeah, it was pretty typical. This guy looks over on camera. God. Yeah, you're talking about me, right? They should have some defense turrets around the pads that detect foul play and on a high risk value. Actually, so that brings me to the next point I didn't mention, which is the reason why they're doing this is because the idea is that the NPCs, the AI, is going to be responsive enough and active enough, and there's going to be enough of them so that any illegal activity like that would be, they would intervene on relatively quickly. Security would show up, space police would be there, anything like that. So I know that's a part of how they plan on balancing that out. We all know as players who actively play this game right now, it's probably not going to happen anytime soon. It really is going to depend on server meshing. So that's why we're all very excited to get 324. And at least I'm crossing my fingers because the sooner that gets out, I'm hoping the sooner we see 4.0 and Pyro. Cargo chaos. Friendly A2 coming at outposts with S10 hugs. Yes, but see, that's the thing is people are going to be doing that just because they find it enjoyable to troll others. You know what I mean? Just because they find it enjoyable to and take their stuff. Because like what I was saying about the prices being lower for illegal cargo, they're not going to make much money off it. Now, granted, it's still free money, and you can get somebody's loadout out of it. You can get some cool armor. Maybe they have on something legendary or a pledge item that they shouldn't have. So that's actually still a good reason to go do it. But in terms of gameplay wise, but you're going to get people who know somebody's moving scrap around. It's worth nothing. Costs them more in fuel to move it around and rearm because they dropped a bomb or fired some missiles or some rounds than anything else. The NPCs being able to defend you cannot arrive quick enough, but we all know it's going to take time.
Haul it up through the freight elevator. You load it up into your ship, and then you figure out what the next location is, and the next location, and the next location. And you can basically do those in any order you like.
You'll have single.
So actually, to go back to my point, the way they do it at distribution centers is great because you land into a hangar. It's just going to be like your personal hangar or a big hangar anywhere around Stanton or Pyro in the future. And you'll be protected and covered and be able to take your time, and that's fine. The real thing I don't understand is having to potentially hire security or run with your org to accomplish these missions that pay so little and have to deal with the. I mean, if you like being intercepted while you're playing, great. I think a lot of us have more of the initial reaction of, damn it, where did they come from? I was just trying to do this. Now I've got to start all over. And it'll be one thing to live through that when the game's more polished and in a 1.0 phase. The reality is that dealing with that right now is incredibly frustrating because we all know that just to get somewhere, you have to deal with X amount of bugs, and we don't even all have the same ones. So,
Pick up single drop-off, so this could be picking up from the LEOs around ArtCorp, the Lagrange points, for example, and taking it to Area 18 or to Beijing Point, the station above. Then you'll have a multi-pickup and a singular drop-off. And then the opposite of that, which is singular pickup to multi-drop-off, could be the complete opposite, where you go from a Hurston DC to 2 other outposts delivering goods. It also lets us do a first static setup of what is being called StarSim, where we can test out the flow and then actually make the dynamic side of it work, where we can balance it based off of the needs and wants of the actual locations.
The work that I was involved with missions with Yorit was to use the EVR algorithm that I created to make sure that all of the effort that you put in has a commensurate reward. EVR stands for effort versus reward. The EVR algorithm is a general balancing algorithm we've developed that takes into account the time and the difficulty of what you're doing, and it gives you a reward that is appropriate for that.
okay, that's actually really interesting, and I hope that works. There'll probably be some growing pains there. What is it considered to be effort and risky? Does it consider you just going to an outpost and grabbing some cargo and taking it to be dropped off? I mean, that's risky. We just talked about it. We all know how risky it's going to be with other players. So are they going to factor that in, or are they just factoring in, oh, well, you're going from, Tamden Plains Aid Shelter to Seraphim. You'll be fine. That's easy, right? Or you're going from mining area, what is it, 141 or something like that, and you're going to Grimhex, or you're going. Actually, you probably won't be going to Grimhex very often for that stuff. Although they probably need stuff too, so we'll see. But I'm curious as to how that's going to factor in, if it's going to factor in even at all.
So if you do something that takes a long time but isn't very difficult, or if you do something that takes a short time but is very difficult, you're going to get appropriately rewarded. So obviously, this kind of thing, effort and reward, isn't a new concept. It's been around since the beginning of computer games. But as the economy team moves forwards and we work on all of the exciting new features that are coming out, We're really happy to be able to bring this kind of coherent approach to the entire game economy.
In the end, cargo hauling missions aren't about how good you are at shooting the bad guys. It's about figuring out which hauls the universe needs. And ultimately, it's about having fun delivering some boxes. Thanks for watching, everybody.
So what did we learn this week? Well, hopefully that the cargo missions aim to provide a more involved and deliberate experience than the commodity ones you might be used to.
Okay, before we get into Jared's recap, I mean, yes, it is fun to move boxes. Honestly, I mean, come on. I like running supplies in games. I find that enjoyable. I like helping out the team. So you'll find players who are going to be wanting and willing to do that. And I'm glad you said that, Classical. I do hope that the armistice or no armistice does factor into the risk. And yeah, I totally understand the distance. That makes sense. Distance should also affect risk because the larger distance you have to cover, the more chance you have of being interdicted potentially or breaking down. I don't know if they'll consider that in the game when, you know, component wear becomes a thing. I don't know. We'll see.
That the blockade runner will benefit from boarding tactics more than simply just blowing things up. And that while your everyday life in the verse certainly changes in Alpha 324, it will continue to evolve in the subsequent 4.0 and beyond. And if you'd like to learn even more about these cargo missions, you can tune in to tomorrow's Star Citizen Live, where the team will talk even more about the stuff you saw here. For Inside Star Citizen, I'm Jared Huckabee. Thanks for letting us share the people and process of game development with you. And we'll see you all here next week.
I had an interesting thought just now. So they plan this content weeks, months in advance. They have to. You have to. There's no way. You need it to be, you need to set up, you need to organize, you need to schedule, you need to shoot it, you need to then edit it, get it approved, upload it, all that stuff. It takes time. There's just, you can't do it all in a day. It's impossible. Or you could, but it looked like crap and nobody would watch it. The reason why I'm bringing this up is because are they now I have to ask the question, did they purposely take their sweet time getting 324 out knowing they had all this content about it to hype it up before they released it? Because let's be honest, theoretically we should have already been playing this in PTU. We should almost already have this in live. This is what, 3 weeks, 4 weeks delayed, because this was all supposed to be part of 323. Supposed to be part of 323, so we were told. I hate to freaking put on my tinfoil hat because I really am not that person most of the time, but we're seeing a lot of cargo stuff coming out. Now, okay, the other side of this could be they're doing this to try to appease people on the fact that it's taking so long and they're running into hurdles, and maybe this wasn't planned out that far ahead in advance. Maybe this was planned a month ago when things hit the fan and they realized, oh no, we're not going to be ready yet to do a release on this. It needs more time, and maybe that changed the order and progression of the content they had planned for ISC. Two possibilities, one tinfoil hat, one a bit more reasonable. The question can be asked though, hey guys, I mean, really, is this for real? I don't know. What do you all think? I'm curious. I hate having a tinfoil hat on me, but I put it on today. Anything funny here? Any funnies? Bring back the funnies. No more funnies. You wouldn't put it past them. And see, that's the thing. We shouldn't think, oh, well, that's actually totally possible. We should not. That should not be a thing that people think. And it's become way too common today. And not necessarily just from CIG, just in general. It's frustrating. But all right, everybody, thank you so much for joining me throughout my reacts. I really appreciate your support. I hope you had fun watching me rant about this for, half an hour. Thank you all for those of you who are here live on Twitch. Thanks to all of you who are watching this on YouTube. And if you made it this far, consider leaving a like and maybe a subscribe. And if you didn't like it and you still made it here, well, thank you for listening to me. I really appreciate it. Thanks again, everybody. I really appreciate your support. Until the next React.